Hello everyone, it's GromitFan01 here, and welcome to my cracking video. Since the early days, around about 1974, Aardman Animations have been making animations using stop-motion animation, and have been specialising in the medium ever since. But gradually a new technique was being developed as the years went by. This technique was called computer-generated imagery, or CGI for short. Then in the year 2000, Aardman started to produce feature films for the public using stop motion, and soon Chicken Run was their first full-length movie. But in 2006, Aardman made their first ever film using CGI animation, and that film was called Flushed Away. Flushed Away was part of the Aardman partnership with DreamWorks Animations, who created Shrek and Madagascar, and was directed by Sam Fell and David Bowers. The film has a surprisingly interesting backstory, as it was planned to be a stop-motion film. But as the production was very complex because of loads of water effects, which are very difficult effects for stop-motion, it was DreamWorks who suggested to make it a CGI film, and so the film was made at DreamWorks Animation Studio, with some of the Aardman team members being trained to animate on the computer while working on the film. The story is about a posh upper-class rat called Roddy St. James, voiced by Hugh Jackman, who thinks his life is just perfect when living in a posh flat in Kensington as a pet. While his owners are away and he has the flat to himself, a sewer rat called Sid, voiced by Shane Ritchie, arrives unexpectedly and claims that the place is his now. Roddy is annoyed and soon has a plan to flush him down the toilet, but instead Roddy is flushed down the toilet by Sid, so Sid can have the place all to himself. Roddy soon discovers that the sewer is populated by rats who live in a city place under the drains of London. While trying to find his way home, he comes across Rita, voiced by Kate Winslet, who is always being chased by an amphibian called the Toad, voiced by Ian McKellen, who has a plan of his own. So, with the help of Rita, the race is on to get Roddy home, while avoiding the Toad and his evil hench rats and evil hench frogs. For Aardman's first effort into making CGI films, this film is surprisingly really good. The animation is really impressive, as the animators at DreamWorks have really tried to stay true to Aardman's roots, such as the textures on the CGI models to make them look like they have fingerprints on them, and the mannerisms that the Aardman characters normally have when they are animated in stop frame. The world of the sewer is really clever, wacky and charming to be around. With everyday props from the human world to make it look like the City of London, the detailing is just amazing and mind-blowing that it feels like it could possibly have been made into a stop-motion film. Also, the humour in this film is just pure gold. I've watched this film many times, and it still gives me a chuckle every time I see the film again. Spike and Whitey, voiced by Andy Serkis, and Bill Nye, are just hilarious characters. They are just the perfect comedy duo because of the trouble they always get into, as well as their lovable personalities. Even though they are villains, Aardman really know how to make them likeable to the audience. In fact, the whole cast of characters are likeable in this film. Roddy and Rita share good chemistry near the end of Act 3 of the plot. The Toad has loads of boundless energy, which makes him a fantastic villain. And Sid, who adds another layer of humour to the film's story. The only problem I have with the film is the plot doesn't feel like it flows as it should. It sometimes doesn't feel like it has a nice pace to it. It can feel a bit dull because it feels like at certain parts in the story where it just feels awkward because the story doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. True, it builds up to the grand finale near the end of the movie's climax, but if you want to keep the audience engaged, it needs to have a certain energy to keep up the pace. The humour does well to keep the energy, but in terms of the action and the emotions, it doesn't build up as much as it should. Having said that, there are some good action sequences, but not enough to keep the story going. But despite this negative point, Flushed Away is a really hilarious movie, with an interesting cast of characters and a world that has great detail, as well as the fantastic animation. I'm GromitFan01, and I hope you enjoyed the video.